Jared Baldwin.
Alright, so about a week ago, I was asked if I could do a chapel, and I was like, wow, yeah, sure. And I'm like, okay, how long does it have to be? And she said 20 minutes. I'm like, wow, okay, 20 minutes. I have to write a speech, remember it in 20 minutes. Now, why am I telling you this? There's a reason. And that reason is because if I decide to say something that makes no sense in a really dramatic way, and I just take a long pause after that to let that sink in, you'll know that 20 minutes is a little long for me. Anyways, so about a month ago, I would have never imagined to be doing something like this, talking about prayer, in case you didn't know, because my prayer life ceased to exist. What do I mean by that? Well, I would pray before meals. Sometimes I would pray before I go to bed, And I was like, yeah, awesome, but, well, what changed since then? Well, it was a few weeks ago, I was at youth group. We were reviewing a man named John Wesley. In case you don't know, I'm going to have to quickly summarize him. His opinions, his theology, it was widely accepted by many people, very influential man to Christianity. We were reading about him, and it was on this one sheet of paper, and we flipped over to the back, and the first line said that he woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and prayed for 4 hours every single day. And then towards the end of his life, he would pray for 8 hours every day. And so I'm thinking, wow, towards the end of his life, he got more prayer time in than he did sleep. And I had to keep on reading that over and over as this wow starts to set in. But once that did, I started to question why. Why did he feel the need to pray for hours a day? But why is not a question that I was able to answer too easily. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. And, well, at first I felt the wow, then I started questioning why, but through it all, I felt a calling that I should try so myself, and that's what I did. That night, I got home, I set my alarm for 4 o'clock in the morning. You can tell it was late at night because I was obviously not thinking. So I went to bed, and, I'm thinking, all right, this is going to be awesome. So I wake up the next morning, I look at the clock, and it says 6 o'clock. My alarm had been going off for 2 hours on the other side of my bedroom. So, hey, that did not work, and I had to go throughout that day. I messed up. But I was determined, I was going to try it again. This time, the next night, I put my phone under my pillow, so that woke me up at 4 o'clock, and I said, Dear God, and I just kind of laid there. And what started to come over me was a feeling of doubt more than anything, because I started to see what I thought was perspective, a wider view of what I was doing. And what I saw is that I was a 12-year-old boy laying in my bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was talking to nothing. So that started to fill me with a little bit of doubt. But despite that, do you know what I did next? A lot of you are probably thinking I went on praying. Let me just repeat what I said. I was a 12-year-old boy laying in my bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. I went to bed. Okay? Fell back asleep, then I woke up later in the morning. But that day, I went throughout that day, and I still felt this calling. So I decided to overcome this doubt, and I was determined to try again the next morning. That's what I did. I woke up at 4 o'clock the next morning, and I said, Dear God. And I paused once again, but it wasn't doubt that stopped me this time. Because for the first time, I started to question, how do I pray for a long time? How do I really form a true relationship with God? And well, that's a question that I didn't really know how to answer at that point. So what did I do? Well, I went back to bed, of course. But I went throughout that day, and this time I'm like, okay, I'm going to find the how. And what did I do? I looked in the Bible. I looked at Moses. I looked at Jesus. I looked at David, Daniel. And it was really quite simple how they prayed. So I found the how, but I also found something extremely important with prayer. And that will bring me to my first slide if we have it. Awesome. Prayer cannot be empty words. What do I mean by that? Well, I looked back at what I was praying before, and I saw, Dear God, thank you for this food. And I just kind of thought, I'm not really thanking Him for this food. I'm just kind of saying that. Those words, do they just lose meaning over time? So I figured that prayer cannot be empty words. If you see these characters in the Bible, what they're praying, they mean it wholeheartedly. can see that God helped them out when they really did pray something and meant it wholeheartedly. So I found that, but I also found the how. And how do you do that? Well, as I said, it was quite simple. If they had a concern, if they had a request, if they wanted to praise God for something, if they needed to talk to someone, what did they do? They went to God. That's what prayer is. You're talking to God about literally anything and absolutely everything. And that is exactly what they did. So now I knew my how, and I went to bed. And I woke up at 4 o'clock the next morning by putting my phone under my pillow. Yeah, that wakes you up every time. And I said, "Dear God," and this time I paused once again and started just thinking. But I didn't pause for too long because I was determined I was going to actually do it this time. So I said, "Dear God, please help me with school coming up with the academics." And after I said that, I really started to get it. I didn't want his help with the academics, you know. I started to think, well, I mean, I don't only want his help with the academics, I want his help with more than just that. So I repeated what I just said, but this time I added more. I wanted help with sports, with relationships, friends, and with him, etc. I mean, I didn't want God to just touch one aspect of my life. I wanted him to come in and totally renew what I was doing. That's exactly what he did. So I thought of problems, took that to God. I thought of concerns, took that to God, and I just started thanking him for all this stuff. Felt like I was praying for hours. So I finally pulled out my phone, I checked the time, and I was praying for a grand 15 minutes. Oh yeah. So, you know, I was pretty satisfied with it. I went to bed. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm somewhere. So I went to bed and I woke up, and I mean, it was something weird that happened that day. It was the best day that I can remember having up until that point. Not because anything out of the ordinary happened, but rather I was filled with a feeling that I'm going to try to describe as satisfaction. Anything that would have felt empty before, I mean, that was all filled. I had this peace, I had this joy. And I finally felt like I was starting to get it. And you know what? I think that I was. So the next morning, I decided to do it again. Excuse me. And I woke up at 4 o'clock. And well, once again, I tried it. This time I was repeating a lot of the same things I said the night before, but that's okay. Or the morning before, sorry. But that's okay. I mean, God just wants to talk to you, and he wants you to talk to him. You gotta mean what you're saying, but as long as you're talking to him, I mean, he's happy, you know? So this time, I repeated a lot of things I said before, and I just kind of kept adding stuff. I kept adding concerns, praises, thanks, and this time I checked the time. It felt like, 10 minutes had gone by. I checked the time, it was 4:45. Now I was like, wow, I've been praying for 45 minutes. I felt pretty happy, and I went to bed. And well, that day just changed my life, because what I really felt was a renewing of my mind that day. As I went throughout the day, I just started to look at an object, and I would see something totally different than what I had seen before. I looked at a person, and I saw someone totally different and totally new eyes, if you kind of get what I'm saying. And I took a step back and looked at life, or rather, should I say life, and I saw something totally different than what I had seen before. I was starting to get it. Well, if you can go to the third slide. I kind of forgot about the second one. My bad. But I mean, well, you can still read that if you want. But, so it says, prayer is rewarding. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're going throughout your day, you feel sad, you feel empty, you feel any kind of emotion, I mean, prayer can just help with that. You don't really realize it until you actually try it. I'm not talking about the 1 or 2 minutes before bed. I'm talking about a dedicated time to God where you just throw your phone out the window and say, God, it's just me and you. Oh, there's the bell. Anyways, so that's what I did. I decided to dedicate time, and that's when he decided to totally change me. So as I said, I saw life totally differently than what I had seen before. What do I mean by that? Well, what I started to see is that we were put where we are for a purpose. We were made who we are for a purpose. I mean, God could have made anyone. He decided to make you. He could have made you any way that he wanted to, but he made you exactly as you are. And he puts you right here, right now. Why? Well, there's always a reason that he does it. There was a recent survey taken that showed that Christianity was in the minority of Americans. I found that pretty interesting, but now I'm just kind of thinking, are we really living out our lives for God? That's what I started to see what life is. It's this short time that we're put on earth. So you can amass as much money, wealth, and fame as you want, but I looked to my past and I saw just about nothing. I looked to my future, once again I saw nothing. And I looked to heaven and I just saw it all. It was just a totally different way of looking at it. And I started to think, I was put here so that I could expand heaven. He gives you people around you. Not everyone around you knows God. They're not going to heaven unless you try to do something. That's really what life I found is that it's living out the purpose that God puts you where you are, surrounded by the people that you are. It's living out that purpose that he has for you. Really started to find that out. Now, I have a question. It's quite a simple question. We answer it just about every day, and we don't really think about it. Are you going to live your life for you? Which that's the easy thing to do. You can amass as much as you want on earth, but once you get to heaven, that's all gone. Or are you going to live your life for the purpose that God puts you on this earth to live it for? If you kind of get what I'm saying here, is that we can do as much as we want, or we can do more that God wants, So yeah, that is my question that I'm going to almost leave you with today. I'm not quite done yet. So most of you are kind of thinking, I don't really care. Life, it seems so long. It's not. It's not a long time. It's insignificant. You have heaven. It's so much more than life. But you don't see it that way, right? So you just don't care about living your life for God. And to those people, I don't really know what to say, but there's probably one person in here thinking, you know what? I think that I do want to start living my life for God. And to that one person, I'm going to have to bring it all back and say that it starts in prayer. Because prayer, it's as if you're reconnecting with God so that you can talk to him and listen to him as he tells you what your purpose is and why he puts you and made you, how and where you are. But also, to the one person, I have something else, which brings me to my next slide. Whoa, didn't know that was happening. It says, yes. So, Acts 29, what is that? Well, in case you didn't know, Acts has 28 chapters, right? So what is Acts 29? Well, the book of Acts talks about expanding the church. God gave the Great Commission saying that you've got to go out to all nations and spread the word, So Acts 29, well, that's what I'm calling the group because we are the next chapter. As I said, Christianity, it's in the minority of America because, we aren't doing anything. We're trying to act cool. We're trying to act like those city kids. And those city kids that are stereotyped as cool, most of them don't know God. And those are our examples. That's who we're trying to live our life like. But to those of you who are deciding, you know what, no, I want to be different. Like, I'm the only one not wearing a class shirt, so I feel a little different right now. I just didn't get the memo there. For those of you who want to be different, Acts 29, this will be a meeting before school, scheduled right now once a month. It's also going to be a prayer walk as you walk around the school and you start to pray for classrooms and people. And it's also a good time for questions that you may have because the people there, they're going to want to be there to try to answer them. Alright, so I'm almost wrapping up here. Most chapel speakers end on the word goodbye. And that's always the word that you remember. So I'm not going to end on goodbye. I'm going to end on start praying. Because that's what I want you to get out of this. I remember middle school fun day last year. I don't remember the chapel speaker who spoke middle school fun day last year. So I'm going to hope that you remember this. I'm going to leave you with the 2 words to start praying. Build up that true relationship with God. That's all for me. Thank you.